Hey y'all, Boogie Night here. How's it going? Hope you all had a safe and happy new year, and welcome to Season 2 of the Sonic Boogie Project. What up? Now, before I go into this movie review, I do want to just take a minute or two to talk about the overall future of the Sonic Boogie Project, as well as plans for Season 2. I was going to do it yesterday, but as I posted on Twitter, things did not exactly go according to plan. So, let me just take a minute or two, and then we'll jump right into the meat of this entry. In the effort to be more consistent this year for Season 2, my overall goal is to try and do at least 2 to 3 movie reviews a month, because that's where I started Sonic Boogie with, and I think I've been honing my craft over the past couple of years for my reviews, particularly when I started doing the Critics Couch with Morges and Josh and Barry Grave, and more recently Redback, and getting a lot more people interested in that side of things. And just, it gives me a good sounding board, so I want to do more of that. I also would like to do one Let's Play a week, whether it's a one-off, whether it's a continuation of Valley or Ori or the future games I have on my Steam Q box or any of the other indie games that I've downloaded. So that's kind of the overall goal. I also want to do at least one creator spotlight a month. And if I get a lot more interest, I kind of want to do something with other content creators. I haven't really thought of a title for it, but for all intents and purposes, it's kind of like the NLSS, where it's a bunch of different content creators that just kind of spend an hour or so just shooting the bull, maybe talking about their channels, and maybe doing some gaming together. So I just think it's a good way for other creators to kind of talk about themselves, and if you're not familiar with them, and you're familiar with my stuff, and I'm friends with them, you might like their style, you might recommend it to somebody else, and it just kind of helps build that overall hype. So that's something I want to do in the works. I don't know if that's going to be a once a month thing. I don't know if that's going to be, once every other month. It just depends on who would be interested in teaming up with me for that. I hope to start doing the once a month or more stuff starting in February, because as I've said on Twitter several times, next weekend is my 12-hour live stream on Twitch to promote mental health awareness and suicide prevention. I will put a link in the description below to my Twitch channel. It will start at 7 a.m. next Saturday, Eastern Standard Time, and will go till 7 p.m. So it'll be 4 3-hour segments. It will be 3 hours, and I take a 15, maybe 20-minute break to eat something or drink something, answer emails, that kind of thing, and then so on and so forth. So go over and check it out. I'm excited and nervous about it, mainly because I have no experience in Twitch, and I'm basically going to be shooting from the hip and flying by the seat of my pants, but that's how I do all my movie reviews. So with that being said, let me know what you think about this overall plan of attack. I'm looking forward to seeing it in the future, and thank you guys so very much for your support and your kind words when I was going through my difficult times. No, the deadline still hasn't been passed yet. I'm on the 1-yard line though, so by the grace of Godfrey, I should hopefully be at the end of the tunnel soon, and it's not the oncoming train. Okay, so I posted not a poll per se, but kind of an overall thought on Twitter about a couple of weeks ago about which movie I was going to review first. Well, this was not one of the movies on the list. I'm not doing it to rickroll y'all, but honestly because I went out with Dovahkiin. Yes, that is her nickname, because that was our first inside joke. Go Nerds. We went out a couple days ago, I had dinner, and she surprised me with a movie, and I went in completely blind, both literally and metaphorically, as in she covered my eyes and led me down the hallway in the movie theater, so I couldn't see the tickets, I couldn't see the marquee. She just led me straight to our seats, and boom, there we went. And I kind of like it, and I want to do this review for 2 big reasons. One, because it's a movie that was actually showing in theaters, and I honestly don't think I've done a movie review of a theater movie since Neosonic and I did Lights Out. So it's been a very long time since I've done that. And also because this was a kind of a different movie for me. Not because of one thing or the next, but just the overall experience that I had with it. And I wouldn't think it's normally in my wheelhouse to go see this, and I'll kind of go into that in a little bit. But I had a very pleasant experience, and I can kind of see why it's getting all this hype for Golden Globes and all these sorts of awards. And I'm talking about a movie called The Shape of Water, which was directed by Guillermo del Toro. God, I probably screwed that up. So why was it something that was kind of not in my wheelhouse? First of all, I'm not the biggest fan of Guillermo del Toro. I think he's a rock solid filmmaker, but in the movies that I have seen him do, or at least through the trailers and the other reviews, is they kind of follow a very similar scheme to Tim Burton. And I am not a fan of Tim Burton at all. I think he's kind of lost his touch over the years. He's gone from kind of the more edgy sort of thing to the more family-friendly, bright color schemes, same stable of actors, and it just, to me, it just all seems kind of like he's just trying to push out more material. Guillermo del Toro kind of strikes me as being a little bit more talented than that, and he wants to put forth good content, but it still follows a lot of those similar schemes of the actors and the graphic design and the cinematography and that kind of thing. But Shape of Water totally just kind of went in a different direction of it. It is a fantasy movie, but it's more of a fantasy drama, and it draws from somewhat realistic experiences throughout history. Now, normally I talk about the plot at the end of this, but I kind of want to talk about it in the beginning because it was kind of my least favorite part of the movie. I know that sounds really confusing, but let me go into it. It was a solid plot overall, but to me, it just got to be way too predictable and way too believable shortly out of the gate. And maybe it's because I've seen way too many movies in my time, and I can kind of pick apart and parse things from being more complex to being more simple. But I found there were a lot of illusions right out of the gate that by halfway through I'm like, that's gonna happen, that's gonna happen, that's gonna happen, that's gonna happen. But there were also a lot of different subplots into the movie that drew me back in, that fascinated me. And I do recommend that you go see this, whether you rent it, whether you buy it, whether you see it in theaters if it's still out, whether you've already seen it in theaters, it's worth at least one view. And if you like that, yeah, then go ahead and get it. I mean, I won't say no if somebody wants to watch it again, but I will probably not buy it. Plus, I have got a lot of DVDs on my movie rack that I need to watch. And that's just another one to add on to the mess. I still have freaking 4 Bruno Mattei movies I have to go through. But I digress. The plot in a nutshell, I'm not going to try and give away too many spoilers, but there probably will be some, obviously. There is a woman who, I forget the actress's name, her character name is Eliza. She is rendered mute for reasons known to nobody. It takes place in the Cold War, so early 1960s Mad Men era, for lack of a better description. And she works at this secret governmental lab somewhere in Baltimore as a janitor for the night shift. And she basically, and her co-worker Zelda, played by Octavia Spencer, who also acts as her sign interpreter, they're working in a lab late night, and something is brought in called the Asset, which basically turns out to be an amphibious, for lack of a better description, kind of like a rejected Argonian model from Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Sorry, Oblivion was my least favorite of the Elder Scrolls, but that's beside the point. The thing was captured, and it's kept in a pool, a saltwater pool, for reasons known only to the scientists. They give a little bit of allusion to using it against the Russians, big surprise there, Cold War, and for reasons known only to her in the beginning, and I'm drawing my own conclusions from this, somehow she forms a bond with him. Maybe because she sees him as imprisoned, and maybe she sees her own muteness as being a prison for herself and not being able to really interact with people on a one-to-one basis as somebody that would speak their language. And it evolves from just this basic acceptance of each other to learning from each other, and once again, I'm going to go into the subplots a little bit more, to love. I know, it's... There's one scene in the latter part of the movie that I wouldn't say made me cringe, but it definitely made me get a little too analytical, and then I look over at Dovahkiin, and we both kind of just go, what? That was a mind job. I mean, that was almost as much of a mind job as the hologram sex in Blade Runner 2049. But to love, and she rescues him because the big bad government, led by Michael Shannon, good God, I love Michael Shannon, we're going to vivisect him, and so on and so forth. They fall in love, he escapes. There you go. Plot in a nutshell. But I want to talk more about, and like I said, it got to be very predictable about the overall characters and kind of what the interactions are going to be. You knew that Michael Shannon was going to deal with this in the end, or Michael Shannon was going to react like this, and you see the characters kind of more driven to their own devices. So, not my favorite part of the whole movie experience, because once again, I don't like movies that I can predict what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes, next 20 minutes, next hour. I want to be kept surprised. I want to keep immersed in the movie, because that's what a good movie does. It immerses you. And a good movie like, say, Kubo and the Two Strings can suck you in like $1,000 hooker, despite the fact it's stop motion animation. Whereas other movies such as, just trying to think off the top of my head, Chronicles of Riddick, you were thinking, oh my god. But it was the subplots that were interwoven into the main plot that really fascinated me. Like I said, I think Eliza became attached to the Argonian reject because they were both imprisoned in their own different ways. Because she couldn't talk. In fact, there was allusions to, there was an accident, she had scars on the sides of her neck. That could have been anything, but she can hear, and she can do certain things which works to her advantage. So I think I equate those two together, which leads to their love. Obviously the Cold War is a big thing to it. It's the Red Scare. And there was actually a doctor working in the lab who basically, he was a spy for the Russians to allude to what's going on with the Americans, but then he has a change of heart when he sees Eliza and the Argonian, the creature thing. And he goes to help her out instead of working for one or turning state's evidence to the American government, which I thought was kind of really cool because I did not predict that. I expected it to be a clashing of the two, of Michael Shannon's character and the Russian doctor, and having a big showdown at the end, like something out of OK, or gunfight at the OK Corral. Another thing that I thought was really kind of cool was that Eliza's neighbor, who is an advertising artist, is a closeted gay man, and he talks a little bit about it, and I think back to Mad Men and the advertising artist Sal, who was a closeted gay man, even at the point in later seasons he got married. But this was also a time when homosexuality was such a big, faux pas. I mean, I wouldn't call it a faux pas now, but it still is, controversial to some circles. And how he's trying to live his life as an advertiser. And there's also allusions to that maybe he was a struggling alcoholic, which was also a big thing in the 60s, as well as his own homosexuality. So I see him as being imprisoned like that as well. So I see all these little subplots all coming together, and it's woven very, very well into the main plot. It's not just abrupt shift, abrupt shift, abrupt shift. It works. And it works well with the characters, which was my favorite part of the movie, was just how much these characters work together between Octavia Spencer. God damn, I love Octavia Spencer. She was great in Snowpiercer. She was great in this movie. Michael Shannon played a bang-up director of the project, right down to when he became so obsessed with trying to capture the alien, or the creature thing, that it just flooded his mind, and you just saw him slowly slipping down to madness. I mean, and then you see Eliza, you see Zelda, aka Octavia Spencer, working together, and there's that gentle bond, but it's also Zelda kind of being like, dial it back, sister, come on. You gotta keep your head in the game. I mean, I just thought it was very done, between the conversations, between just the overall body language, to the shift in wanting to help versus not wanting to help, between job security, life security, between and wanting to just do the right thing. Of course, also with Eliza and her neighbor, that was just like the cutest odd couple relationship I had ever seen. Like, because they are two completely different worlds. He's very old-fashioned, and she's very spunky. She's a young budding person in the world, and it just overall worked. It was fantastically done. I mean, even when the chips were down and it was incredibly serious. There were still one or two moments where maybe they might do, the Shyamalan thing and throw in something stupid to kind of maybe cut the mood. And I'm talking, of course, about the can scene in Signs. But I think that's what really made the movie, and that's kind of what Dovahkiin and I were talking about when we left the theater, was just that overall experience. And of course, between Argonian and Eliza, going from this very hostile, well, you're a human, you're probably among these people that captured me, to her actually teaching him rudimentary versions of sign language so they could kind of have a basic conversation with each other, which I thought was brilliantly done. It could have just been kind of like, looking at a lion in a cage at the zoo and be like, okay, I respect you, but I'm gonna keep my distance. That was actually a really bad comparison, I apologize. Okay, let me rephrase it. It's like meeting an animal in the wild. And there's tons of gators down here in Florida, so I try to keep my distance but be like, okay, I'm just gonna go over here now, but I understand you're gonna do your thing and I'm gonna do my thing. Great. And I think that's another thing that led to their bond. So I think that was, once again, my favorite part of the movie. And right down to the cinematography, which, I mean, I've seen so many different forms of cinematography, and it was no Suspiria. Let's just get that right out of the gate. I think Suspiria, in my opinion, had some of the best cinematography in any movie that I've ever seen. But this movie was definitely well done. There were very good pan shots. There was one scene where Eliza's neighbor, I forget his name, I think his name's only mentioned twice in the entire movie, is standing in his apartment and it's pouring down rain, and he's just standing at the window looking out into, just staring into space over the city of Baltimore. And then it pans slowly through, down to the right, and then Argonian man is standing there in the exact same position staring off into space. And I just think between the rain, the light and shadow contrast, and just the overall color scheme of drab, run-down Baltimore of the 1960s just did it perfectly. And even other scenes where maybe there's a scene where the Argonian man escapes into the theater below, down in the below the apartments, and Eliza rushes in and sees him just standing there watching the movie. I forget which movie it was, and just once again, just the overall scheme of the panning shots, and I think light and shadow is the best part in that scene, because you see the creature's silhouette, and then you see Eliza's silhouette, and you just see the light coming off of the screen, and just the way it works out is beautifully, beautifully done. I just thought that was probably the second maker, next to the character interactions, that made this movie enjoyable. I know fantasy movies are not for everybody, and drama movies are really not my thing. I mean, unless there's something tied into it, like, Casablanca does, or Band of Brothers, or things like that. Like, something that's going to appeal to me and suck me in. But I think this movie was very well done. I can see why it's gotten a lot of the hype. And I'm glad to see Guillermo del Toro move in kind of another budding direction to kind of see about making his chops, as it were. So, once again, I'll have to go see this movie again. I'll never buy it, but it was a little gem to watch. So very thank you to Dovahkiin for recommending it and showing it. So the next part of this project, I will try and get a Let's Play up at some point soon. Hopefully tomorrow. I've got to do a creator spotlight tomorrow. I promised this creator a month ago I would do it. And I'm grateful that she's been patient enough for that as well. But with that being said, let me know what you think. If you've seen Shape of Water, let me know in the comments below what you think of it. Did you like it? Could you dislike it? Could you care less about it? Do you like the director? That overall thing. So, with that being said, y'all, I'm going to get some work done around here because the Fortress of Boogie 2 is kind of slovenly. So, other than that, I hope y'all have a very great weekend, and I'll catch you on the flip side, alright? Peace.